I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. For a decade, Theater Nova has been a haven for new art and artists at the Big Yellow Barn on Huron Street. Continue to celebrate this milestone anniversary year with our local professional theater company with a season dedicated to world premieres.
It's such a wonderful opportunity to be directing a show during this milestone because Theater Nova has just kind of always been, since its inception, a bastion of new work in Ann Arbor, and it's so cool to see a place that uplifts new stories, uplifts new playwrights.
I was actually part of Theater Nova's very first season when I was right out of college doing Bright Half-Life, so to be back in its 10th anniversary season, and then as well as the 100th anniversary of the moments in Eclipsed feels really, really special.
Eclipsed is based on a true story. It is historical fiction, and it centers around this doctor, Ashen Sweet, and his wife, Gladys, who attempted to integrate an all-white neighborhood in Detroit in 1925, and they were beset by an angry mob, and a whole bunch of terrible consequences ensue. And so what this kind of focuses on is we reframe the story to surround Gladys and the women in her life, because so many articles only talk about Ashen Sweet and his wife.
I am playing Gladys Atkinson Sweet. She just stayed true to herself. She stayed true to herself of like, I want to be a music teacher and share music is my gift, and I want to share that with other people and also be near my family who support and love what I do. And just continuing to just not only be her genuine self, but fight for that same reasoning with other people in her community.
It's important to venerate these folks, right? They were early civil rights leaders. And so often we think about the 50s and 60s, maybe even 70s, as the time when all these civil rights advancements were made in the United States. However, a lot of what we see from those large, soaring speeches have a direct through line from the work that Gladys Atkinson Sweet did and her speaking tour that she did with the NAACP. This play is so infused with so much love and so much history and so much ancestry that it's a canvas opportunity.
For more on 10 years of top-notch performances, visit theaternova.org. Stay tuned, and we'll be back with more in exactly 30 seconds. Supporting the health and wellness of children can create a more well-rounded, empathetic, and understanding adult. There's a University of Michigan organization dedicated to keeping our youngest generation safe, strong, and ready to tackle life head-on.
We're here for the Susan B. Meister Child Health Evaluation and Research Center annual lecture on child health policy. We bring in speakers every year on a different topic relevant to children's health and health policy.
Susan Meister and her husband Paul are two of the most enlightened philanthropists here at the University of Michigan. Their philanthropy across the healthcare side of what University of Michigan does, the research side, and now in this cultural space is hugely important. And they endowed this annual lecture every year to really draw attention, raise awareness on child health policy, and we're thrilled that actually for the first time in its existence, actually this focus today will be on the arts and music, specifically on childhood development.
The keynote speaker this year is Anthony White. He's the music director of the Detroit Youth Choir. We wanted him to come join us with his choir to be able to speak to the importance of music education and the importance of supporting the arts in children's education, because it's really important for children's development in learning about the arts, but also their emotional and intellectual development as well.
We know that there's more and more research today about actually how the arts improve people's physical health. And I think we've known for a long time, and all of us who are involved in the arts know that the arts and emotional well-being and health, I think, they're intrinsically linked.
We learned today that there's more to it than just music. There's the education about music, there's the learning about not just the vocalization or the performance of music, but the camaraderie.
For more on the Susan B. Meister Child Health Evaluation and Research Center, visit cheer.org. To safeguard road workers, traffic laws and fines are stricter in construction zones. Learn more about work zone safety in this month's City Roundup.
I'm Sergeant Mark Pulford with the Ann Arbor Police Department. I'm here today to talk about work zone safety. We all know, living in Michigan, that construction season, it's pretty much endless. So we want to give you some tips to stay safe while you're out on the roadway this season. The first one is to slow down. There's a reason that speed limits are reduced in construction zones. It's to protect the workers. Second one, be alert. Never drive distracted. There's always changing roadway conditions, so you want to make sure that you're alert. Next one is to give the workers some space in construction zones. They work in very close proximity to the roadway and to cars. Give them that extra space, and please be patient. The last tip that we have is to follow the detours, the roadway markings. I know it can get confusing in construction zones sometimes, but follow the signs, follow the markings on the roadway. That's why they're there. Those are the tips that we have for today. I want to thank you for listening, and stay safe, Ann Arbor.
The current political climate has left many feeling uncertain about food security, housing, and education. Community Action Network, or CAN, is working close to close that socioeconomic divide in our area by providing resources to underserved community members. But they need help too. Joining me is Derrick Miller, Executive Director of CAN Washtenaw. Welcome back to the show, Derrick.
Thank you for having me.
So can you tell us what CAN does for the community in many different things that they offer the community?
Absolutely. So Community Action Network, we manage 7 community centers located mostly in under-resourced neighborhoods, providing kind of what we call our 3 main pillars, education being one. So our after-school programs that run throughout the school year, and then our educational summer camp that runs for 6 weeks, 7 hours a day, 4 days a week, as well includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the kids. And have dinner involved for our after-school programs as well. And then under our housing stabilization pillar, we have eviction and utility shut-off prevention. Since we started tracking it in 2002, we've stemmed off more than 99% of the potential evictions throughout our communities. And then also food security is a very big part of our housing stabilization work. We're actually Food Gatherer's largest partner. We do about 10.5% of their entire inventory across our 7 sites. And then our last major component under housing stabilization is our sustainability work, and has manifested itself in a few different ways. One of it is the decarbonization of our community centers, but we are also working on a neighborhood-wide decarbonization project in the Bryant neighborhood. Have made some huge successful progress on that particular front as well. And then last but not least, our last pillar is community building, things like our community events that we have throughout the year. Things like our back-to-school barbecues, Thanksgiving potlucks, holiday parties, community cleanups, etc. But also we have resident councils at most of our sites as well that provide a lot of guidance for our on-site operations.
Can you talk a little bit about that community connection part and why that is such an important facet to being a part of CAN and having that community support where you live?
So I would say one of CAN's most impactful thing that it does as an organization is that it establishes long-term relationships across kind of bodies of people that oftentimes don't intersect. And so those community events is one of the ways that we help bring that together. So for example, at our back to school barbecues, We have the school district staff there and principals, but also Ann Arbor Police Department and a bunch of other partners like Black Men Reads and Interpublic Schools in terms of some of their other partners like Rec and Ed and preschools, et cetera. And then also just like the volunteers that are coming from various walks of life. They're all engaged and all really having robust kind of relationships and networking, and that brings a great deal of understanding and kind of the demythicizing a lot of what goes on in under-resourced communities as well. And it's been one of the best ways for us to really truly help families become a lot more successful.
Well, one of the main reasons why we're having this conversation today is to talk about the current political climate and the administration and how it has had an effect on CAN, Washtenaw, and other nonprofits in our area.
It's been admittedly pretty devastating, what we've been going through. And really the first volley actually happened about a year and a half ago when they had passed the government shutdown prevention bill that reduced AmeriCorps by a little over $40 million. And as a direct result of that, AmeriCorps had to nationally eliminate their summer associate program. And that summer associate program actually made up the bulk of our educational summer camp staff. And so we're talking about full-time staff, about 20 to 25 people that were providing about 8 to 9 weeks worth of support, and basically now having to cover that cost with seasonal staff to the tune of about $130,000 recurring new expense as a result of that. That threatens its future viability as well. But also with AmeriCorps, we went from having 14 full-time AmeriCorps Vistas that were with us for at least a year down to 4 as well. And still, too, in terms of AmeriCorps, we have started to see the actual implementation of various executive orders. So one thing that we've had to already do is eliminate any reference to diversity, equity, and inclusion from any of our content application, our job descriptions, our job postings, et cetera, et cetera. And they have actually gone through and screened for this content, and organizations got one of 2 emails, either a compliance or non-compliance. And I had heard from our regional contact that there are, in fact, non-compliant organizations that have also been dropped from the program as well.
Well, and that was sometimes like some of the stuff we hear from the administration is just like, you're throwing darts at a wall kind of thing. You don't know what's real and what's not. And I do think that's something, the confusion and chaos is working.
It's also causing paralysis. It's also causing paralysis because they're like, wait, I'm being told one thing. I'm actually getting emails that are also mandated by courts that they're injunctions saying like, stop following this executive order. But then like you have the other side telling us like, no, you need to do it. And then basically the courts are saying like, if you do this, we will, this is against the law. And what happens is that then those that are caught in between, they're stuck. They can't make key decisions. And right now we have a renewal application and I'm still waiting for it to get approved because they're still figuring out like, can we approve this? And so, yeah, that's one of the pretty big resources, and it has a huge impact for our organization, but it's also not the only one that's been affected. Another one is the USDA's the Emergency Food Assistance Program, known as TFAP. That went from being paused to now being canceled. For context, it makes up for the rest of this fiscal year, which runs from July to June, 15% of Food Gather's entire inventory. And so fortunately, Food Gatherers has promised to cover that gap for the short term for the rest of this fiscal year, but be able to sustain that difference is going to be extremely difficult because through the course of the entire year, it's actually about 30% of their entire inventory. And the future of that program is very uncertain, but fully anticipating continued reductions, if not complete elimination of the program. And this is all during the same time where we've gone from prior to 2 months, our peak would usually be about 125 people coming through our Bryan Community Center site, which is a site that serves the entire county. It's kind of the site I would call our bellwether site, which gives us really good insights on what goes on. For context, like when the government shutdown happened for COVID, that food program number doubled over time. um, and ended up peaking about 250%. For context, since that time to now, we've more than quadrupled the amount of households that are coming through using our food program. And so what we're now seeing, what used to be 125 families coming through on a food distribution day, peaking around 215, all the while having fortunately stabilized, thanks to food gatherers for stabilizing the loss of the USDA program, but that's a short-term fix. And it still doesn't account for the increased families that we have coming through. And so the end reality is that it means that more families are getting less food. And we're pretty consistently running out of inventory. And so there are a lot of families that we're also turning away because we simply just don't have more food. It's
Well,
also
and
worth noting. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, well, and one of the things we were talking about prior was, that it's not just food in general, it's the food you need that makes you healthy. It's fresh foods
It's
that
the most demanded food. It's
yes,
dairy, meats, and um, what was that? Dairy,
veg
meat. I'm sorry, what?
vegetables,
And
produce.
vegetable produce. Yeah. And so what tends to be in pretty ample supply is like a lot of the canned goods and box goods, and certainly like those things are always welcome. But they're also less healthy for you. And these are again the most sought after items that are also some of the most expensive items as well. And so that is the health consequence of this is going to be quite substantial.
Yeah, big time. Because even I notice, like, when I'm buying my romaine at the store, I'm like, this is three heads of romaine are like $7 or something
Mhm.
now. And then you're like, okay, do I need to grow my own food? Will that be cheaper that I now have my own little plot here? I don't know. Like, what are the solutions to this? And what can we do to help people that can't afford that $7 head of lettuce or whatever it is? Can
Mhm.
we provide food? Can we give you fresh food? Obviously, you said you're getting a lot of canned food.
Yeah, so donating is always very welcome, and very helpful. You can actually, if you go to our website at canwashnow.org and click on the donate page, there's a sub page on there that shows like what are kind of the donation items that we're most seeking. Um, we even have site wish lists on there as well. So if you wanted to be customized to down to a specific location for can, and similarly, Food Gathers on their site have a similar kind of web page that really breaks down a lot of the different ways to donate and what to donate and how as well. What I'll just say is like every bit matters, and always just at a minimum, communicate and connect with us. And just got to email info@canwashnow.org. And we have staff that will get in touch and figure out ways that we can partner because, quite frankly, that's what's been why we've been so successful and impactful as an organization is our ability to partner with such a wide variety of folks and backgrounds and all that as well. And so getting involved, whether it's financially, non-financially, just making that step makes a huge difference.
One of the other things you were talking about previously was having people volunteer. Obviously, you mentioned the camps and you don't have as many people and stuff. So, like, that can also be some way that we can step in.
Absolutely. And so, for context, we have about 450 unduplicated volunteers that partner with our organization in any given year. And so it's a huge, huge part of the impact that we have as an organization. It also, and there's just a large variety of ways to get plugged in as well, whether your background is interested in education or food security, even sustainability. There's a lot of ways to get involved. Um, it is worth noting that that's not been the end of the kind of disruptions that we've experienced. As I mentioned before, we have a neighborhood-wide decarbonization project. And this is a project that we've been working on for a couple years in partnering with the City of Ann Arbor's Office of Sustainability and Innovations. And we've made massive headway, really not only improving the health and comfort of the homes, but also even the affordability for the homes as well. And that work has currently entailed emergency repairs for like roofs and drainage issues and crawl spaces, insulation, windows and doors, electrification and updating appliances with Energy Star rated appliances, but even also solarizing houses to offset the energy burden. There is a federal definition of when a community is considered energy burden, and it's when at least 15% of the neighborhood spends over 30% of its income on utilities. And this neighborhood, I think, is more in the like 20% range of the community spends about over 30% of its income on utilities alone. And we're having a very direct and immediate impact on that as well. And about a year ago, the city of Ann Arbor had landed a planning grant with the Department of Energy to explore the possibility of creating a regional geothermal district. And fast forward, not only was that plan very successful, it actually determined the feasibility of the creating the regional geothermal district. We actually have the buy-in of the community itself and excitement for this transition of its heating and cooling source. And as part of the second phase of the Department of Energy grant process, the city was awarded $10 million. However, fast forwarding to now, it's been paused, and there's no clarity if it's going to be unpaused, even though that this grant had already been awarded to the city of Ann Arbor. And it was our last key component for this robust neighborhood decarbonization project that would set us on course for creating our country's first pre-existing neighborhood to become carbon neutral.
Wow, that's a shame. I mean, I hope that that those dollars really get unfrozen, because we also are hearing more, like, you get the mail, DTE's raising their prices again, which is then affecting all of these people in these neighborhoods. And you might hit that 30% number that is crucial to like the health and wellness of these underserved neighborhoods.
Our modeling for this project showed a 40% reduction in the cost of the utility for their heating and cooling through this geothermal district system.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's just benefit all around, and then you can't do it. You've seen what it can do, and then you can't do it. Your hands are tied in so many ways. I can't even imagine what it's like to be in your position right now and feel the weight of this on your shoulders for all of these people. You're feeling this weight for all these people because you want to provide for the community. You want these people to succeed. You want them to be healthy and have healthy foods to eat.
And we've proven our impact. We really spent a lot of time and effort to get the organization to kind of a scale where we could get this amplified impact, this economy of scale that really exponentially increased our impact as an organization to be able to do things like decarbonize a neighborhood. And what's really challenging is when you start making those reductions, it has the opposite effect too. It starts to dismantle that exponential impact. For more context, our entire agency's operating budget to do pretty much everything with the exception of the sustainability dollars, but to run our education programs for a full year, not have to charge for any of our programs and services, to have 7 sites active year round, providing very robust various types of services and things like that. It costs about $1.7 million to do all of that. And right now, where we have a recurring $350,000 hole as a direct result of all these different types of federal reductions, freezes, pauses, cancellations, etc. And it is extremely difficult to keep filling that hole because we know that our typical giving and whatever miscellaneous grants we might get in a given year is not going to consistently cover that gap. And so that's also why we actually have a summer fundraiser going on right now to help cover the $150,000 hole that we have as it just relates to our educational summer camps. And so, and fortunately, we are about $80,000 of our $150,000 goal. And so we are making some pretty steady progress. Again, these are not long-term fixes. It's just band-aids that we're stringing together, trying to minimize the disruption. But it's going to be very difficult to keep that disruption stemmed off. We are fortunate to live in a very like-minded, supportive, empathetic community that actually does, frankly, care about its under-resourced families. We do have local electeds that do genuinely care, and I'm aware of some steps, like they're trying to sort through because, quite frankly, there is a lot of triaging that's needed to happen because the federal impact is also not consistent across nonprofits. For some context, some nonprofits, 40 to 80% of their resources come from federal sources and have been frozen and or canceled. And there's some serious question in terms of, how many of these nonprofits actually even survive moving forward as a result. Fortunately, CAN is structured in a way where we're not disappearing, but life is getting real difficult. And yeah. And so that's always certainly something that would always highly recommend folks to do is reach out to your electeds, both locally, city and county, but also even at the state level. They're going to certainly have a lot more receptive ears at the local level. Frankly, we need to be a lot more noisy at the state level because there's it's a little bit more complicated and needs a lot more political willpower to remedy a lot of these issues that are going on.
Well, Derrick, we're just about out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Let people know about how they can support, what they can do, anything at all?
I mean, I would just say, however, you might not know how to get involved. All you have to really do is just reach out and explore and see what's possible. And it doesn't have to be with CAN. Like, there's a lot of other great organizations out there doing great work. And the other reality is I've always known this to be true, which is that policies that get created locally at the state level, at the federal level, almost always show up immediately, impacting the families that we work with. And this is no exemption from that. And the reality is that we're dealing with a lot of challenges. And the more we can get our community engaged to help stem off as much of this effect as possible is greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you so much. I wish all the best for the community, for low-income families, for CAN. I hope this really turns around.
Thank you for having me.
For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN. Visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer. And remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification. Thanks for watching and tune in next time to FYI.